Okay, in this video you're going to learn to solve quadratic equations by two different methods, and those methods are by graphing and by factoring. Factoring we've already visited, but we're going to go back to it in this video. This first part, it says consider the equation x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Show that x equals 5 is a solution. Okay, as far as solutions go, basically we want to see if we plug in 5, will it gives a true statement. So here's the work to show that. So what I'd like you to do real quick is pause the video, copy this down, copy down these first 3 pieces of the chart, and then I will talk about those. So pause it and do that. Okay, on this first part here, to see that 5 is a solution, we just plug it in 5 wherever there is an x. So down here, x squared became 5 squared minus 8 times 5 plus 15. So this is this. Now, if it's a solution, then when I work this all out, it should equal 0 to solve it. And when you work that all out, 25 minus 40 plus 15, you end up with 0 at the end. And so that shows that x equals 5 is a solution. Now, over here, it's going to show you that there's actually more than one solution. Just to kind of go through here, if they gave you these values for x and you plugged them in, these are the y's that would result. Okay? So when you plug in 1, you get 8. So in your xy chart on your calculator, you'd have 1, 8. If you plug in 2, you would get 3. If you plug in 3, you get 0. I'm going to actually show you the rest of this chart here. So go ahead and fill that in. If you need to pause real quick, do that. But these are the main 2 columns we're looking at. At least, definitely show at least 3 or 4 of these, especially these 2. Show that work so you can see what you did there. But notice that there are yeses here. Now, it's saying that these are solution. Now, we already said that 5 was a solution because this is the same equation as this one over here. So we know when we plug in 5, we do get the 0 that the equation is equal to. So that is solution. But remember, if it's a quadratic, there's usually 2 answers, unless there's a double root. We'll talk about that in a minute. But normally you're looking for 2 answers. So the 5 is only one of the answers. So if you look in your chart, you also have a 0 here. So when you plug in 3 and you work that out, you get equal 0 also. So that also makes it a solution. So your 2 solutions to this equation are 3 and 5. These 2 right here. Okay. On this next section, we're going to actually look, so that's the table. So you're looking for zeros to find the solution. Now, on the next part of this, we're going to look at the graphs. So what I've done here is I went ahead and I took these ordered pairs, 1, 8, 2, 3, 3, 0, and graphed it down here. So you get this parabola. So here's our points, 1, 8, 2, 3. So go ahead and plot that real quick. 3, 0. Our lowest point is 4, negative 1. Remember, that's called the vertex. Okay? And in this case, it's a minimum. And then we have a point at 5, 0, and then a point at 6, 3. Okay? We could have gone on, but that's where our table ended. And then you'll connect all those to make your parabola. Okay? Now, if you'll notice about the parabola, let's think about these 2 solutions we found. We found the solutions to be 3 and 5. Well, if you notice on your parabola, where does that cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses at 3 here and at 5. And so those 2 solutions that represent, or those 2 points that represent the solutions are, let me try again, are 3, 0 and 5, 0. And then, of course, both of those are on the x-intercept. So if you're looking in the chart, you look for a 0, okay? If you're looking at the graph, you're just going to look to see where the graph crosses the x-axis, and that will give you your solutions. And notice they're the same. All right. Down here, it says, in these cases, we use the following items to describe the solution to quadratic equations. When you're dealing with just an equation itself, Those answers are called solutions or roots. Roots is a new word. We haven't really used that in this class that much yet, but you need to know that. Those things mean the same thing, okay? Those are solutions. In other words, what numbers could you plug in and get 0 out of that, okay? Now, in this case, if we factored this real quick, which we've actually already done this, but if we factored this real quick, remember we would do our factors of 8 that make -6. So our factors that make 6 would be definitely 2 and 4. Now this sign tells us they have to be the same sign, and this one tells us they're both negative. So if I factor this, I would have x minus 2 times x minus 4 equals 0. Now that's factored but not solved. So if we were actually going to try to find the solutions, we would come back, remember, set each one of these equal to 0. We did this before the break. And then remember that when you actually solve this and move this over, the signs change. So your signs for your solutions will be different from your signs of your factors. So the final solutions there, I'm going to bring this right here, would be x equals positive 2 when you move this over and positive 4 when you move this over. So you get 2 and 4 out of that. Okay? All right. And so make sure you write down there that you get 2 and 4. Okay? Now, if you graph it, notice this one actually has a y in the equation. So that means you could graph it on a plane. So if we were to graph this, we put this in our calculator real quick, it would look like this equation right here. It would look like this parabola right here. Go back. Struggling, sorry. And so when I have the graph, it's actually very easy to figure out. Remember, all I'm going to do is look at where the graph crosses the x-axis. Well, it crosses here at 2, 0. And it crosses here at 4, 0. So that, again, will make our solutions 2 and 4. Now, if it's a graph, your solutions are also called zeros. And of course, that's where the that's where the graph crosses the x-axis, so they're called x-intercepts. So these 4 words, let me use my highlighter here. These 4 words, you need to know that those are all synonymous. They all mean the same thing. Basically, you need the solutions. The solutions are the same as the zeros, which are the same as the x-intercepts, which are the same as the roots. All those are the same. Okay? All right. On the bottom of the page there, let's see if I get this to work, we're going to review solving by factoring. So just real quick, if we solve by factoring on this first one, we are going to, remember, most important thing is to make sure that that is equal to 0 first. So if I'm going to make this equal to 0, I have to move this over. So I'm going to put x squared minus x minus 6 when I move it over equals 0. And then I'm going to factor this, just like I've been doing, reverse FOIL. Okay? I need my factors of 6 that make 1. Well, of course, that's going to have to be 2 and 3. I need -1, actually, because that's a negative x, so I need -1x. So I need to do -3 plus 2. So my factors are x plus 2 times x minus 3. And remember, you can reverse FOIL that, or you can FOIL it to check it. 2 times 3 is -6. X times -3 is -3x plus 2x is -x. Then the next step is set each one of these equal to 0 and solve. So remember, when you move that over, it changes the sign, so you get an answer of x equals -2. And we move that over, it becomes +3. So you get an answer of -2 and +3. Okay? And again, if I were to want to make sure these are right, I could go back and check that. So if we check -2, if I plug in -2, square it, minus -2 equals 6, that should equal 6. Well, this is 4 when you square it. Remember, the negative will square into a positive, and the opposite of -2 is +2. So definitely 4 plus 2 is 6. So that checks out. Okay? All right, and then the next one real quick. Again, this it needs to be in this form before we start. Equals 0. So I actually need to move over 2 things this time. I want to keep my squared term positive. So I'm going to leave the 2x squared where it is. but I need to move the 5 over and the negative 9x over, and both will change signs when they move. So the 2x is still positive. I need the x term in the middle, the linear term in the middle. So when I move it over, it becomes plus 9x and then minus 5 on the end. I change the sign. All right, now I'm going to check to see if there's a GCF since I have a 2 here. 2 will not divide into all those numbers, so I don't have a GCF. But I do have this leading coefficient of 2 still, so that means I have to do that process. I'm going to do A times C and see what adds up to B. So I'm not going to use the factors of 5. I'm going to use the factors of negative 5 times 2. So A times C is negative 10. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. B is 9. So my factors of 10 that make 9 would have to be 10 and 1 for sure. Now I need positive 9, so I'm going to do plus 10 and minus 1 to get my positive 9 when I add. So my factors are x plus 10 times x minus 1. Remember, your process, this is still equal to 0. Your process is, this does not give me this, definitely, when I FOIL it. So I need to go back and divide by this a. Don't forget. So this is x plus 5 when I divide. This one won't reduce or divide, so I'm just going to move this 2 up, remember? And so this is 2x minus 1 equals 0. Now at this point, I'm going to come back and solve. So I said each one of these equal to 0. And so I get x equals negative 5, and I get 2x equals 1. Now, I haven't had this before now. I can't leave this 2x. I'm just going to go back and do the last step, which of course would be to divide by 2, so those cancel. So my final answer would be that x equals negative 5 and positive 1/2. Okay? All right. On the following page, where it says solve by graphing, I think we're just going to end there. Go ahead, and if you'll notice on C, go ahead and put that equal to 0. I will give you a hint on that one that you have a GCF of 2. So pull out the GCF and then try to factor it and solve it. See if you can get that right for class tomorrow. Remember that you need to complete your factoring problems at the bottom of your review and finish factoring part 2. Remember, we're going to have a little short quiz next time I see you over factoring. Okay.